Hello and welcome back to another episode of Unsung. I'm Mark Hopkins, and for the next 28 minutes or so, we'll try and take your mind off the troubles of the world and educate you on something different and try and stay on topic. But I don't think that's going to happen today. I promise that every week, and it never happens, and that's kind of become the point of the show. You can catch us online. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and all the other things. You can catch past episodes. We've been running a rerun every now and then. I did over a year with no reruns. That'll never happen again. That was way too much work. Today we're talking with somebody who is I don't believe in coincidences, and me and this guy keep coming up with more and more that is just not a coincidence. We like the same music, and that's not that odd, but it's a license plate on his truck, and said, "Oh, you like such," and then we find out through talking that a very small, obscure town in Jersey, we both are from right there, and within 2 years of each other, and I was put in touch with him through somebody who had been on a show who said, maybe you should talk to this guy. You might get along with him and everything. And we're talking with Joseph Peterson from the Norristown Police Department. And I thank you for coming. And
thank you for having me.
And I'll I guess your specialty outside of law enforcement, you've come to be a bit of an advocate for speaking about substance abuse and its impact on the job, particularly alcohol.
I have. Yeah, most recently did a video beneath the vest for Glenn Holston, and it was a piece on alcoholism and how it affects our job. Expertise, police officers, firemen, medics, etc. A little reluctant at first, but I think it was the best thing to do to try and reach out and maybe save one person if we could.
Why do you think police officers, and let's just say, let's lump everybody together, say emergency service workers, why do you think they're reluctant?
Well, as we talked before, I think a lot of it is pride. A lot of it is ego. There's a lot of fear there. Fear that they may lose their job. And the other thing, as I said a while back in the video, where we're expected to be this like Superman, where you just peel the shirt and the vest back, and there's the big red S on your chest. And you're not supposed to be afraid. You're not supposed to be fearful, any of that. And I think that it just goes hand in hand with our business. You got to be able to stand up.
And people have to realize that there's a line. We have to get beyond that pride to where we let it impact us and hurt us medically and everything like that. And we've got to, and when you get older, you do get beyond that pride, because medical procedures take much of your pride away. And you realize that, you're not going to bust your back and say, oh, I can lift that. And straight, you're going to go, I can't lift that, and call for help. But we got to get beyond that. And people think that if they admit vulnerability, that people will think less of them. And we've got to remove that thing where people think less of people, because it's for being human, And I'm the same way. I'll admit it. I think less of people when they show too much vulnerability for stuff. I don't want somebody that's going to go out and hurt themselves being proud, but I also don't want somebody who's going to cry watching Bridges of Madison County. And somewhere in the middle is where we need to be.
I would have to agree with you there. It's something like I described a while back, is, it's a business where, our minds aren't made to see all that death and destruction over that period of time. sooner or later, it's going to break down most of us. Not all of us, but most of us. I equate it to like, the water dripping on a rock. And then after so long, that rock just splits in half.
Well, I think it breaks down everybody, but just in different ways. And I think sometimes some people numb it with substances. Some people numb it with food. Some people numb it with collecting porcelain Elvises or something. Everybody picks their way to numb it. I've got a buddy who doesn't drink. He will never touch alcohol. He has because of problems in his family, he has a unnatural, almost unhealthy aversion to alcohol. Like he thinks he has an alcohol allergy, doesn't like it anywhere near him, but he drowns his stuff in food. And pretty soon they're going to either have to put a garage door in the front of his house, or he's going to have to get over what's bothering him. But everybody does it in different ways. It's just some ways are less socially acceptable and easier to hide, and different things in some ways are more destructive than others. And alcohol is an oldie but a goodie as far as being easily accessible and destructive in the long term.
Well, I'm old school. I think addiction is addiction. Okay, whether it's alcohol or food. That happened to be one of mine early on. That was probably one of my first addictions. My experience, strength, and hope is this. I was an alcoholic long before I got into this business. And I said that probably I was an alcoholic out of the womb, because I had a father who was a recovering alcoholic, 28 years sober when he died. My mom's coming up on, 12 years, maybe more, of sobriety. And, when you have two alcoholic parents, your chances of being an alcoholic are about 90%. Mm-hmm. And, there was no getting away from it. I was doomed from day one. And then I took on a career that would allow me to, as I said in the video, it's like almost a rite of passage where, you catch the bad guys and then you almost become one of the bad guys. That's your right. You were out catching bad guys, so now you're going to go out and you're going to take care of, yourself for a while. And somewhere along the line, I crossed the line. And I don't know where that was, but it cost me my wife, it cost me my kids, it cost me my house. It almost cost me my career. But I was able to sit there in my truck that morning before I thought about doing a really bad thing to myself. And I said, this isn't how it's going to end. And I got help. And my vision is to reach out to as many people as I can, whether it be cops, firemen, medics, whatever. This disease, it's not going away. And, again, addiction is addiction, whether it's food, your buddy who is clearly on his way to eating himself to death. Booze will do the same. Heroin will do it. Opiates, you hear about it every day on the news. It's insane, the amount of stuff that's going on right now.
The difference is alcohol is socially acceptable, as it were, and it's more easy to slide in. You can't be at a dinner party, or you can't be at the dinner things I go to and have a plate of cocaine sitting there. I imagine there are dinner parties where there are plates of cocaine or whatever. I don't go to those. I don't go to dinner parties that have more than one fork, so I'm on a different level of dinner party right here. I had dinner the other night and we only had one fork between the two of us. It was great. It was great. There was only one fork, and I said it was like turn-based eating. You take a bite, I take a bite. It would be really hard to gain weight if you took more forks out of the house. I realize that because it's slower. But alcohol it's acceptable in moderation, and sometimes it's acceptable in excess, and it didn't You know, when I was growing up, the person who drank was, you had your mean drunks, and then you had your funny drunks, and he's being funny, and we laughed away, you know, a lot of people that had problems that we just, I guess we enabled them, you know, by not doing anything. And I mean, it wasn't until, I guess, couple decades ago, I can remember that people were putting people in rehabs and things like that and getting started doing that. And I think what you're doing is like a grassroots thing for people that have actually been there is better in some ways, because a lot of these people that, I mean, God bless them, because a lot of them are doing a job that people don't want to do and it's difficult. But it's really tough to be a 50-something-year-old man and take this life guidance, go somewhere to get help from somebody who's half your age. You know, it's really difficult because, you know, we really want our wisdom to come from people older than us, you know, and just like our doctors. I say often how unnerving it is when you go in and there's that slide when the doctor starts to get younger than you. And now I met my doctor's son, because he's done and I'm dealing with his son now. And, I guess you did this because you wanted to reach out to people that were sitting in their trucks about to make horrible decisions. Well,
I did. I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there that are still hurting. And I don't really, it doesn't matter to me what you do for a living. You know, I hear it in the rooms of AA. I hear, you know, I hear it all over, and it saddens me because I know that a lot of them are not going to end well. And I hear it a lot, you know, again, in the rooms where, you know, so-and-so has been with us for so long, and then all of a sudden that person isn't there anymore. And then you hear that, you know, they either drank themselves to death or took themselves out or were in a horrific car accident and passed. There's the stories abound of horrific endings. And I was bound and determined not to have my story end like that. And I entered rehab, and, you know, back in 2009, I've been sober 9 years now as of March 1st. And, you know, my thing was, as my father before me, was to help people that wanted help. And, you know, I'm here to say that it works. It works.
Well, emergency services is particularly difficult because, and police work being probably the toughest out of all of it, because it beats you up mentally. You see things and you deal with things on a regular basis. You have to find a coping mechanism, and if you don't, you find or you find a bad one, and you don't find the right one. But it beats you up with what you see. It also beats you up because of you know, horrible rotating schedules to just keep you continuously disoriented and exhausted, and then asking more and more, and it takes its toll on you. And you talk about people taking themselves out. When I worked at a place that dealt with adults that were in recovery, coming back into their lives after they came out of the recovery industry, without going into a rant on that, because they were being dumped back into the same thing that put them in. And instead of, we were trying to break the cycle of it. What I started to see was a lot, because of awareness, a lot of younger people that were going to, had been people in their 30s that had been sober 10 years already, you know, because they had started so early. And then I started to see that these people, and some of them work there with me, they were going to funerals all the time. Mm-hmm. Because it was happening younger, you know, it was happening younger, and they were going to so many funerals. And then you'd have, like you said, you'd have somebody that drank themselves